Let's start today's video off right by saying the figure we're reviewing is of one of the most legendary anime protagonists of all time. Ghost in the Shell is one of my very favorite anime, the movie as well as the following series standalone complex. So, today's figure is none other than the one and only Motoko Kusanagi. Motoko's an awesome character, and I can't understate saying that she is literally one of the best protagonists ever because she may be one of the best and well-written characters in anime as it is. Beside her just being a great female character, she's just a good character in general. They don't use any cheap ways of developing her, and I think that's what I appreciate about her the most. She's a strong female character, but they don't abuse that trope. Motoko is authoritative, but also beautiful, and additionally incredibly intelligent. She's cunning when need be, but also there's a person deep down in that shell. And thus, we are left with one of the best and most beautiful characters in anime history. So what better way to commemorate 25 years of Ghost in the Shell by combining her with one of my favorite figure brands? Figma 237 is of Motoko Kusanagi from the standalone complex anime. Now, she doesn't differ too much from the movie, they just updated her look to make her look a little more modern and a bit more pretty. And I'm okay with that, because this figure is stunning. I've had it since it released, but let's get into this figure and check out the box. And of course, the front is a window display, everything else being black and light shades of purple, and accenting it rather well. On the one side, she's looking directly at the viewer, with no smile, but she doesn't seem to be frowning either. She looks both powerful and pretty. Now the other side shows a rather aggressive Motoko. She's holding a rifle and looking directly at the viewer as if she's ready to attack. And of course, the back is littered in different poses, as well as some of her many accessories are also featured on this side of this box. The top is another action-ready Motoko, her holding a pistol with the same angered expression ready for a battle. But let's get into the actual box itself. But here's the figure, and it's actually rather nice. All the colors look really decent, and this figure is actually adorned in an outfit that's not terribly familiar. She does wear this, don't get me wrong, but it's not her typical flagship outfit. Still, it looks good, and I think I understand why they gave her pants instead of just making her wear the singlet with the stockings. Obviously enough, that would create a lot of weird gaps where her legs disconnect from her pelvis. So, rather than making the character partially naked and making it look really weird with all the gaps in between her legs, this seems a little bit more flowy. This works a little bit better. Sometimes you have to figure out how to engineer a figure to work right, and I think that was a choice they made to make this look good in the overall package. And I respect that. That being said, the outfit does look good. All of her proportions look good. Motoko is nice and busty and still rather slender and shapely as well, so there's nothing to be disappointed in there. The jacket is incredibly glossy and shiny, whereas everything else is rather smooth, and of course her face and skin parts that are exposed do look like skin and they're a bit more matted. The top of the jacket is a softer plastic, so that does have some flex to it, which is nice because it'll flow with her movement. And she's basically 5.5 inches tall, which is pretty standard scale for a Figma. But of course, let's talk about Poseability. She is a Figma, so she is composed of the many joints that we love from them. Her head can go up and down, and of course it can swivel side to side and roll around as it needs to. Her shoulder is on a ball joint, which is great because that allows it to rotate around as need to go in and out and swivel as well. Her elbow is of course a hinge joint, which can swivel at either side, as well as bend in and out. Her wrists are the pegs that have a pivot to them, so they can go up and down and they can swivel all about as well. And just beneath her ample bust is another ball joint, which allows her to rotate rather nicely in and out, side to side, twist it, anything you need to do, and there's really not too bad of a gap when you move her around, which is really great. As we move down her body, we get to see that nicely crafted navel right there, which is just a lovely detail, and of course another ball joint inside of her pelvic area, which is great because this actually rotates incredibly well, almost too much. So much so that it kind of creates a bit of a gap here, which is fine though, because it actually moves so much that you could never want any more from this. And of course that can be twisted as well. Along with her top half, if you pivot them both ways, it allows for some very, very dynamic posing of her body, which is perfect for a character like Motoko with such a feminine and slender figure. Now, in her legs, we also have ball joints here as well, which are great because they allow it to go in and out, and twist around as needed, roll around whichever angle you want, so you couldn't really want anything better with that. Her knee, much like her elbow, pivots in and out on a hinge joint, which can also be twisted as needed on either side. Her ankles are also on hinge joints, which can go in and out, and they can twist as you need them to. And finally, her toe can be tilted back on another hinge. All in all, spectacular poseability, almost better than some of the other Figmas I've had, so I can't complain at all. That poseability is going to factor big time into her score. But let's move on to hands, because like many Figmas, she comes with quite a few. The first pair being these balled fists, which are perfect for a character like Motoko, so that she can punch your head in. Do you even lift, bro? She also comes with a pair of opened hands, where her fingers are nice and fanned out. She also comes with a pair of grasping hands, which are great for holding her accessories. And I should mention another detail is that each counterpart to the gripping hands is just a little bit different. This is so that when she holds her guns, it actually looks a little bit more natural and fluid because she's holding the front of it with the other hand and rather than holding the actual grip of it, so it actually works rather well. As you can see here, the one hand is much more open for the grasping hand, while the other hand that it comes with is a bit more flattened so that she can hold the front and support the weight of her rifle. And then she comes with still more grasping hands. The one is for her pistol, while the other can be used for pretty much anything, really. And just like so many other Figmas, Motoko also has the ability to take off her hair and then remove her faceplate. In addition to her neutral, somewhat of a scowl, she also comes with this rather peaceful, smiling face. There are few times that we get to see this lovely smile of Motoko, but when we do, it's all the more special, and having a face of it for the figure is very appreciated. But in addition to those faces, she also comes with this very aggressive, yelling face. This is of course great for combat poses, so the array of faces that are included are all very appropriate and incredibly appreciated. But there's even something else we get to do with her beautiful face and head here. She also comes with this additional hairpiece, which allows her hair and bangs to flow. Of course, this is another great piece that can be used for combat poses and more dynamic poses, and I really do appreciate it. The hair is stiff, so that is a bit of a pain, but to be honest, it's short enough on both of them so that it doesn't get in the way too much, so I can deal with that. Now, in addition to her faces and hands and hair, she also comes with more accessories such as her guns. This rifle in particular is rather nice. Of course, this is very reminiscent of the guns that they use in the show, and this one here is a rifle which is really well crafted and nicely sculpted, and it even comes with a silencer bit that can be attached to the front. It just sort of clips on, you just push it right over the front of the gun, and it's right there, and it's optional, so you can use it with or without, so that's nice. And she comes with a very nicely sculpted pistol as well, an interesting design on this, and of course she is very often pictured with a pistol in the show, so I do appreciate the accuracy of giving her another weapon like this. And finally, before we get into posing this, I have to include the final accessory, which is, well, it's literally an additional pair of breasts. There's really nothing else to call it. I could call it a chest, but I mean it's not the full chest, it's literally just the breasts. The other ones come off rather easily, and these can be clipped on. And once they've been attached, you can notice that they're much more pushed together than the standard set. This is so that when she holds her guns with two hands, it doesn't create any issue. Obviously enough, they couldn't be malleable, so they included the additional part, which I think is a great detail. This does not sacrifice the sculpt of her actually having the accurately very feminine large-breasted model. If you're a fan of the show, you'll know that Motoko chooses these bodies on purpose, so not sacrificing that is just staying more loyal to the actual show, which I really do appreciate once again. I never thought I'd be talking about boob accessories on this channel, but I guess we've gotten to that point. So then, before we get to the final verdict, let me just show you two more things on this figure. It does of course come with the Figma bag and Figma stand that all of the other figures are known to come with, but something about this one is a little bit better than others. In most cases, not all, Figmas typically plug in just above the back, and it's typically right between the shoulders, and a lot of times it's underneath hair. As you can see, that is the case with Makise Kurisu right here. Even with some of the newest figures in the line, it's a common problem that I've had. If a character is not incredibly tall, like Kurisu here, you will notice that her feet don't actually touch the base of the stand, which to me looks rather stupid. Now, not all Figmas are as tall as others. Some of them are taller and thus their feet can touch the base, but many of the girl characters are just a little bit shorter. With that as a result, you may have to tilt the character forward to get their feet to touch the base, and personally, I think that just looks a little bit dumb, because then it screws up the way that you can pose them. Additionally, having the hair cover where it plugs into the back also creates a lot of problems for posability. Now, I should say that this is no problem with Motoko here. If we turn her around, you can see that the plug actually goes in just at the small of her back, right above her waist. This is so much better. It almost assures that her feet will always touch the base of the stand. And personally, I think that that looks a lot better. Now, of course, she doesn't have long hair that'll get in the way of it being plugged in at the top of her back, but still, it can usually be a problem with longer haired characters, and even the fact that it is right here is just another thing that this figure has going for it that some others don't. It amazes me that they still get this wrong today. Now, one other thing that I think a lot of people may overlook is the fact that she has an extra hinge, which allows her neck to actually move forward and backwards, sort of like she's pecking like a bird. But why would they do that? Well, let me show you one very pivotal feature of this figure. You see, the attention to detail is astronomically great here because they get something that I'm sure many people may overlook. I would say that most fans of Ghost in the Shell would argue that this is one of the coolest immersion pieces of this figure. You'll never see it in practicality, but if you move her neck forward and tilt her head down, there's something right there. Now, when we focus on that area, we can see that Motoko comes complete with all 6 of the ports on the back of her neck. This is an incredibly iconic feature of characters in Ghost in the Shell. A friend of mine who is incredibly into Ghost in the Shell actually has these ports tattooed on his own neck. This is just the cherry on top. For everything else that this figure does right, this here makes me smile and feel so much happier that I bought this. Like I said, you'll probably never see it, but it's such a great little nod to the fans. And speaking of fans, let's talk about them, because I, like I said, am a huge Ghost in the Shell fan. I absolutely love this series. I love Motoko, I love her character design, I love the character itself, and Ghost in the Shell overall is one of my top favorite anime. So this figure had a huge bill that it needed to fill for me. And I'm happy to say that it comes in and it fulfills that and then some. Though she's not dressed in her more iconic outfit, I still appreciate this figure and the engineering that went into it to making it work well. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices to create something that looks of better quality, and they did that in such a way that I really can't be mad here. Everything here is great, and this is the kind of build quality and attention to detail that I love from the Figma line. She's an unfair comparison because this figure does so much right that it makes some of the newer figures look like they're doing it wrong. And this figure is a great value. You can actually pick her up anywhere around $60 or $70 now on eBay, which I would say is pretty fair because this is a wonderful figure. They capture the essence of the character so well here. That probably sounds a little pretentious, but to be honest, if you play with the figure, you'll kind of understand it. The fact that you're able to move her torso in one way while then pivoting her hips in the other way creates a very, dare I say, sexy look for this figure. It does sort of in a funny way embody that in the series she actually chooses to use very sexually appealing feminine bodies as just a personal preference. So to be honest, nothing about this figure has really upset me too much, and I'm going to give her a 9 out of 10. I say that most of these points come from the fact that its articulation is out of this world and it is so incredibly show accurate. So this is definitely one I recommend picking up. But what do you think? Are you a fan of Ghost in the Shell? Why don't you like the video if you liked this video? And hey, have you ever seen Ghost in the Shell? What's your favorite character? Comment below and let me know. I'm gonna link something on screen, so even if you have seen it, make sure to click it because it does help the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, then please make sure to do so you can join the Kingdom. And I want to thank you so much for watching. I will see you very soon, but until then, have an amazing weekend and keep on collecting.